All right, Mr. Carswell, we've got recording and live streaming started.
Thank you and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Burke County Board of Commissioners special pre-agenda meeting, our Zoom virtual meeting for Tuesday, August the 4th, 2020 at 3:00 p.m. Let me welcome all of you here today. And at this time, I want to do a verbal roll call. Vice Chair Mulvey.
Present.
Commissioner Abley.
Yes.
Commissioner Britton.
Here.
Commissioner Taylor. Commissioner Taylor. I see Commissioner Taylor is here. We'll come back in just a moment. You talked to him, Scott?
Yeah, Daniel's on with him right now. We're trying to work out a screen issue, but
Okay.
I'll see if I can get him unmuted.
Okay. County Manager Brian Steen.
Yes, sir. Here.
County Attorney J.R. Simpson.
Present.
And County Clerk Kay Drone.
Present.
Madam Clerk, we do have a quorum present. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move forward, even though Commissioner Taylor is not here yet. First thing we have is the approval of the agenda for today. We do need to remove two items off of the agenda. You've had a copy of that for a good while. There's two items from BDI. One is Project Sparky, and the other one is Project Shoestring. Those projects are not ready to be discussed today. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of those two items.
So moved.
And that would be Vice Chair making that motion?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
All right, no problem. Got a motion from the Vice Chair. Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes on that also with that motion. Commissioner Taylor, are you with me now?
Should be able unmuted now.
Commissioner Taylor, can you hear me now? Commissioner Taylor, can you hear me now? All right, they're still working on Commissioner Taylor. Before we move forward, let me remind everybody, if you would, please eliminate all background noises that may distract us from this meeting. If you have any electronic devices, if you would silence those, we would appreciate it. And again, Commissioner.
All right, I'm down back to connection email link. You want me to hit that secure, log me in?
Okay, he's there, but he's working with tech.
Okay.
Okay.
Maynard, can you hear me? Okay, let's try to move on forward then. The first thing we have on our presentations for today is our Pet of the Month, and that is going to be presented by Caitlin Settlemeyer, our Animal Services Director. So Caitlin, if you're there, please take it away.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so yes, we're going to be presenting another cat and dog this month from Animal Services that is available for adoption. I do have our coordinator, Lindsay Stupp, here with me. She will probably be taking over some presentations here in the future, so I wanted to get her involved as well. But we will be presenting again this month, and we are very excited to do that. It's been a very successful program. And that's all I have.
All right, gentlemen, any questions or comments for Caitlin? All right, hearing none without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Vice Chair Mulvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Mr. Britton,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes on that one, Kate. Thank you so very much. Moving on to our second presentation will be from the League of Women Voters. This will be a resolution acknowledging ratification of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, and that will be presented by Dot Williams, and also with Deb McGivern, who is president of the North Carolina League of Women Voters. Dot, I think we'll start with you, if that'll be okay.
Wasn't able to get on this call. She had a conflict.
I got
So
you.
this is
Okay.
Debbie speaking.
Okay, Deb, you take it away then.
So the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan group focused mainly, our organization is focused very much on voting rights. It's been 100 years, and actually the day of your meeting is the same date that Tennessee was the 36th state to ratify it. So they were the state that put us over the tipping point. So that date is very important to us as the league for the 19th Amendment going through and getting passed this year. So it's the 100th anniversary. What we have asked is for all the commissioners in counties in North Carolina to basically recognize that milestone event for women voting in the states. And I don't know what you know about the league. I think we have very much a nonpartisan approach. We are focused on voting rights. You have probably heard from Dot and Julie Pepper about Vote 411, which is our key educational tool for voters. Not only all things voting, but also kind of the candidate forum, if you will, online. And we also are focused on voting access these days, especially with the concerns for COVID. So we've also done education relative to options available and how people can vote.
All right, thank you, David, for that presentation. Gentlemen and ladies, do we have any questions for Deborah?
I do want to clarify that I'm the president of the Catawba Valley League, not North Carolina. You gave me a promotion, and I would love to have that, but I'm not. And Catawba Valley covers 4 counties, Burke being one of those 4 counties.
Thank you, ma'am, for that update. A little promotion never hurts, does it?
If only it came with a raise, you know.
Amen. Any other questions or comments, gentlemen? All right, hearing none without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Vice Chair Mulvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton.
Yes.
Madam Clerk, I will vote yes also. All righty. Moving on to item number 3 is a proclamation honoring Dorothy Kincaid Hawkins on the celebration of her 100th birthday here in Burke County. And I'm going to turn this over to the Vice Chair and let him speak to us about Dorothy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just been contacted by former Commissioner Bruce Hawkins, one of our good friends amongst all of us, and he made me aware that his mother is getting ready on August 28th to enjoy her 100th birthday, which is an unbelievable accomplishment. I want to thank Kay for writing up the proclamation and working with Bruce on getting the specifics on that proclamation that will be read at our regular meeting. And so it's just a joyous occasion and a remarkable achievement, and for a great family in our community. So we're just glad to be and honored to be able to share it.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Also, as commissioners, we wanted to extend our condolences to the Hawkins family also at the death of Carl Hawkins. That's one of Miss Hawkins's sons. I first met Carl Hawkins in 1969 when I was a young police officer starting at the Valdez Police Department. Carl worked there as a part-time officer, also as he actually cleaned up, helped keep everything tidy down there. One of the finest fellows, along with his brother Bruce, that I have ever met in my life. So a celebration of a 100th birthday and a celebration of her son going on to heaven. I know she will be missing him, as Bruce will also. So without objection, this item will remain on our agenda. Vice Chair Mulvey.
Yes.
Commissioner Abley.
Yes.
Commissioner Britton.
Yes.
And I will vote yes also.
I believe Commissioner
Okay.
Taylor is back now too.
Okay, can you hear me, Commissioner Taylor?
I hear you, but I don't know if you hear me.
No, we hear you fine right now. We just now
Really?
got you back.
All right. Daniel,
Okay.
they say they hear me fine now. I'm gonna see if I can pull the agenda back up, okay?
Okay, Maynard, we're getting your conversation with Daniel, so I'm going to, can you hear me now? Let me ask you that first.
Yes, I hear you, Johnny.
Okay, we've approved the agenda and we've done our pet of the month and two presentations for the League of Women Voters and the proclamation on Miss Hall.
Hold on a
We're
second.
now moving on to our scheduled public hearings. That's where we are at on the agenda. All right, moving on to item number 4, our scheduled public hearings. Our first item will be from the Animal Advisory Board regarding the ordinance amending Chapter 6 of that county code. We also need a public hearing on that, and that will be presented by Debbie Hawkins, our Animal Advisory Board Chair, along with Brian Steen, our County Manager.
I
So
see it, Daniel.
Debbie, are you up?
All right.
Debbie
thank you.
Hawkins?
Bye.
Have
Can
we got
y'all
you,
hear
Debbie?
me okay?
Got you now.
Yes, can you? Okay. The Animal Advisory Board is recommending changes to the animal ordinance to provide clear expectations of animal care for the citizens and county staff. The Animal Advisory Board has provided with this recommended ordinance updated definitions of basic care. We've added standards of care, clarified tethering and chaining guidelines, expanded what constitutes abuse, cruelty, and neglect, revised a section on dangerous and potentially dangerous dogs so that it's easier to understand, and developed guidelines to hold pet owners more accountable for having unaltered pets. We believe this ordinance shifts the responsibility of the animals from the county to the owner, which is better for all. We've estimated at 85% of the animals brought into the Animal Services Center being unaltered. We must begin holding those individuals responsible who continue to allow their unaltered animals to roam freely. There were 931 dogs taken into the center in 2019 at a cost per animal handled of $107.11. Of the 931 dogs taken into the center, approximately 24%, or 221, were returned to their owner. Using the 85% that I mentioned earlier of being unaltered, that means approximately 189 dogs were unaltered and are now back in the community. If they continue to be allowed to roam unaltered, we could be looking at approximately 1,879 puppies born in just 1 year. The county's cost to handle these puppies would be an estimated $201,259.69 if they all ended up at Animal Services. For the cats, there were approximately 25 cats returned to their owners. So with the same cost estimate of $107.11, it would cost the county $32,133 if those kittens ended up at the shelter. That is a combined total of $233,392.69. The advisory board believes it is time to hold pet owners accountable for having their animals having litters that are sold or given away with little to no regard to the health of these litters. We are recommending guidelines that respect reputable breeding in our county and no longer permit irresponsible breeding practices. We included in our recommendations a delayed implementation date of December 31st, 2021 for 2 sections: unaltered reclaiming of animals at Animal Services and breeding practices. This would give time to put procedures in place and develop a monitoring system to measure if these guidelines are successful. A delayed implementation date would also give time for the advisory board to educate the public and give the public time to get in compliance. This ordinance also gives animal enforcement officers the authority they need to protect the animals and removes all references of animal control and the sheriff's office. The Animal Advisory Board unanimously approved this final draft of recommendations on July 29th, 2020. And the county attorney has reviewed the ordinance and his changes have been incorporated into the draft. This past year, you have implemented major positive changes. We hope you see this as a final measure to create avenues for rescue, adoption, spaying and neutering, sound breeding practices, and community-wide pet responsibility. This is a cumulative ordinance that lays out the plan for a win-win situation. I'd be happy to address any questions you might have.
Thank you, Debbie, for your presentation. Gentlemen, any questions for Debbie?
Mr. Chairman, this is Maynard Taylor. I have a couple, if you don't mind. Reviewing that, some of the fines appear to be a little abusive. And I realize the hard work that's gone into this. But JR, you're there, aren't you?
I am.
Can you tell me what the fines are for being arrested for driving under the influence?
No,
I understand from another person that the fine for DWI is $200. And we got fines for the animals. I read a couple of them and I didn't write them all down, but I know one of them was $1,000, which seemed to be abusive. And it also said something about all breeders must obtain a breeder's permit. How much is that permit, Debbie?
That would be a fee that would be established by the county commissioners, I believe.
Do we know what that is, Mr. Chairman?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay. Well, can we have that by the time we vote on this next 2 weeks? I also want to make one other comment, and I've made this before, not for animal control, but for other issues, and it just simply is this. When I read some of that, and I really urge each county commissioner to really take a look at that. Some of those rules are just about impossible to enforce unless you're going to have an individual hired to watch about every dog owner in the world. And we need to look at that a little bit. I see the gist of it. I did look up and ask the computer to tell me how many people were killed by drunk driving in the United States last year. It was 11,342, 368 in North Carolina, 7,912 injured. And I think that it just looks like with some of those charges, we're trying to build a new animal shelter, which is understandable too, but I think we need to look at those a little bit. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, this is Jeff. Debbie, I guess my biggest question is the dealing with unaltered animals. I know you just talked about giving a time frame for folks to kind of get prepared for that, but how would you anticipate enforcement of that? Would that be on as an animal was brought into the shelter type of enforcement, or what are you thinking? And looking at JR's comments, he mentioned paperwork difficulty. Just kind of tell me how you would vision that working.
Based on the feedback that we received after we sent the draft that came out the end of June, we actually revised that portion of our recommendations to go along the lines of a voucher system, which is something that Caitlin has some history with and some experience with. So in that example, if an owner came in to reclaim their animal, if it was unaltered, Animal Services would give them a voucher, which would allow them to take their animal to a vet and have it spayed or neutered. Does that make sense?
Right, and suppose they say, well, no, I'm not gonna do that, or they take the voucher and go home and
Well,
never.
they're going to pay for the voucher. So if they want to take the dog or cat and go home and not go to the vet and have it fixed, then that's just money for the county.
So the person, the owner themselves would pay for the voucher.
The owner pays for the voucher along with any fines that they would have to pay when they pick up when they reclaim their animal.
Okay,
Mr.
That would,
Chairman,
that would require a contract with the vet. And that's one thing that we talked about when we met with Margaret and Brian the other day.
so again, is the enforcement of this more or less a complaint enforcement? In other words, where are you anticipating just going out door to door and looking for unaltered animals, or what are you thinking?
No, I think it's like with any rule or law that's put in place, we tend to enforce the violators. It's just like with speeding. We don't catch everybody that's speeding, but we catch the ones that are caught or penalized. So those owners who are reclaiming their animals that aren't fixed would be held responsible for either getting them fixed, or they help pay for taking care of their unaltered animals.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
gentlemen, the finance officer and I met with Debbie the other day, and we expressed some concerns, and we're looking into some issues related to that. We'll try to have an answer by early next week.
Mr. Chairman, Maynard again. Jeff made me think of another question. When I had the kidney stones and here recovering, we had a nice little terrier dog show up that was well-trained, well-broke, was a house dog. And my usual rule of thumb is to see if anybody's going to come and claim it. We took care of it for 3 days. Nobody claimed it, but somebody heard about it that goes to church with one of my children and asked if they could have it. And I said, yes, but in reading these rules, and this is my point, I broke the rule because according to the rules, I was supposed to call animal shelter within 24 hours. I didn't call animal shelter. So that's my point in some of these rules. They're just, of course, people in rural areas, seem to take care of themselves. And if a cow gets out, neighbors help put it up. If a horse gets loose, we have cats. And if a dog shows up, we usually try to find out who the owner of it is. So, but from that standpoint, and it's minor, but could become major, if you did that 2 or 3 times and the folks at animal shelter could fine you according to the rules. But I just think it needs to be looked at a little bit before we do the final vote 2 weeks from today.
If I could just add to what Commissioner Taylor was mentioning, that particular rule is something that has already been in the ordinance. That is not something new.
Yes, granted. Thank you.
Jeff, were you recommending any changes to the ordinance?
Not at this time. I just wanted to kind of better understand what the anticipation was.
Maynard, were you recommending any specific changes to the ordinance that you wanted?
Well, Johnny, I don't really recommend at this time. My plans would be to get a copy of these rules and take them to a couple of breeders, one of them who breeds beagles. That breeder's fine if you have litters of dogs and get fined for them. and you can go ahead and chuckle at this. Sometimes dogs get pregnant and it's not intended to be, just like human beings. But the point is that I think it's going to take some major education and information to get everybody up to snuff on these rules, because you know, if you rabbit hunt and you love it, if you quail hunt and you love it, if you fox hunt and love it, you're gonna raise and continue to raise animals to aid in that sport. We call it a sport now. Back in my childhood days, it was necessary to have food on the table. But those couple articles kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I'm not saying they have to be changed. I'm just saying we should consider the opposing views on some of those issues.
Okay, thank you for those remarks. So am I hearing everyone correctly that we would be ready to vote on this in 2 weeks? Debbie, did you hear, and maybe, are they going to be, here's my position. We've been on this thing and we've tied up the county attorney and a lot of people for a long, long time. We need to get it right. And that's what I've said from day one, we need to get it right. So Debbie, is there anything else that needs to be added before we vote on it in 2 weeks? And if there is, how fast can we get it out to make sure everybody understands?
I believe I'd sent an email to JR asking for clarification on one section. And I believe Rebecca McLeod had sent JR an email requesting clarification on dangerous dogs. Other than that, and a couple of typo corrections that I have sent since to Kay, I hope we're done. I'm done.
JR, is there anything you want to add?
Well, I got the latest draft this morning at 11 and I haven't had a chance to look through it. There'll probably be, you know, a few nits and changes that I'll have, but nothing, nothing substantial. The substantial part is what the commissioners, if the commissioners want to make this this change in how things have been done in the county for the past years.
Mr. Chairman, if we could have the next draft that comes out with our agenda, if we could have it to show what was changed from the pre-agenda draft, that would be helpful to me.
Okay, Debbie and JR, please make sure that that occurs, that we can see the specific changes from what arrived to us at 11 o'clock or what JR got at 11 o'clock a.m. Make sure we understand what the new changes are in there before we vote in 2 weeks. That be okay with you two?
Yeah, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I would bring up and ask if the enforcement piece that we need for the new animal services enforcement officers, are we going to do that in August?
JR?
Well, it's part of the ordinance. So I think it gives the animal services enforcement officers the ability to civilly enforce the statute. Now, they won't have the ability to do criminal summonses or to write out warrants or criminal fines because that has to be a sworn officer, but they will have the ability to enforce it. So
I think and I agree with you 100%. That was my interpretation of what was going to happen, but I still think we got the from the sheriff that if we needed him for anything, that he would be willing to have an officer there. Sheriff, if I told that wrong, please tell me.
Johnny, I think that those enforcement officers can go to the magistrate just like any civilian and issue charges, any misdemeanor charges. The only time that the magistrate would not allow them to issue their own charge would be for felonies. And yes, the sheriff's office will provide assistance to those civilian officers.
And
Thank
search.
you very much. Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, without objection, I'm going to keep this item on the agenda. Do the roll call vote now. Vice Chair Mulvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor.
Yes, with questions.
Yes, okay. And the chairman votes yes. All righty. Thank you so very much. All right, on to our consent agenda. Item number 1 is a resolution regarding surplus.
Sir,
Oh.
you've got another.
Pardon me.
you've
One
got another
JR.
public hearing.
You're rezoning, item number
Oh.
4.
Excuse me. I had it covered up with a mouse here. Okay. Number 4, Community Development Zoning Amendment ZMA 2020-02 in public hearing, presented by Scott Carpenter, Deputy County Manager and Planning Director. Sorry, Scott, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to see everyone today. This staff has received a rezoning application from Michael Hevner on behalf of Brenda Alley to rezone a parcel of land totaling 14 acres. The request is to rezone the property from its current zoning of industrial to the residential 2 zoning district. And Madam Clerk, could you scroll down or bring up the existing land use map, please? In 2008 and 9, Burke County undertook a small area plan for the I-40 corridor. The property subject to this rezoning is located approximately 0.4 miles from the exit 113 I-40 interchange, and it was part of the I-40 corridor small area plan. The property address is 662 Perkins Road, Southeast Valdez. There is only one residence on the property, and aside from the one residence, the property is mostly vacant land, which is partially wooded. There is also a large open area which may be used for agriculture. The parcel is located within a WS4 protected water supply watershed district. Records indicate that the property can be served by public water and public sewer. The parcel has 940 linear feet of frontage on Perkins Road Southeast. And if you look at the map there, you can see with the yellow that those are single family homes. The white areas are just vacant land, and those vacant lands are either agricultural fields or forestry types of activity. The gray, dark gray areas is the town of Valdez that's surrounding this property. And Madam Clerk, if we could bring up the existing land, I'm sorry, not the existing land use map, the aerial land use map, and that gives you a better idea from the air of what this looks like. So as I've said, the parcel is partially bordered on all 4 sides by the town of Valdez jurisdiction, as indicated by those gray areas, and the subject parcel and several other adjoining parcels to the west are zoned industrial. Those parcels are within Burke County's planning jurisdiction. So what happened, I believe, was in 2008 and 9 when they were looking and working on the I-40 corridor overlay, that this parcel came up as a piece of land that had water and it had sewer. It was large and it was near a major intersection, and that's how it wound up being zoned industrial. So some of the surrounding zoning around that includes zoning from Valdez, which includes a manufacturing zone, which is M1. It also includes a residential 8, which is probably 8,000 square feet per residential unit, as well as an R12 zoning district. The parcels that are there for Burke County include 2 R2 districts. So it is in compliance with those standards, and it could actually be used for either industrial purposes because of the water and sewer that it has on it, but it could also be used as a I guess, a moderate density piece of land for a residential project, and it could have up to 28 housing units on it if it's rezoned to R2. And of course, the R2 zoning allows for single wide as well as double wide and a few multifamily types of uses. The current land use plan for Burke County is the 2016-2030 Blueprint Burke Strategic Land Use Plan. The parcel is located in the primary growth district. Primary growth areas are located within and directly adjacent to existing municipal corporate limits. Primary growth areas are areas of existing development and should have easy access to infrastructure, utilities, and transportation corridors, such as Interstate 40 and US 70. These areas contain a mixture of residential, commercial, and industrial land uses. Higher density development can be anticipated to occur in these areas in the future. As far as conformity with the Burke County zoning ordinance, as stated earlier, the current zoning for this is industrial, and it is understandable why, based on the location, based on the availability of water and sewer, that would have been zoned industrial. However, the proposed R2 district would also be appropriate because of the existing surrounding land uses, as well as other R2 and residential zoning districts surrounding this property. The planning board met on June 25th, 2020 to hear this zoning request. At the meeting, there was one member of the public present to speak, and the citizen voiced his support for the proposed zoning. His residence is located on property across the street from the subject property. The board voted 6-0 to recommend approval of ZMA 2020 to the Board of Commissioners. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, gentlemen, you've heard Scott's great presentation. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, Maynard Taylor. Scott, I have one question or one comment. It's a combination, really. You stated in this that it's 14 acres. You could have half-acre lots, and that would give you 28 lots availability for dense housing. The question I have, you got to allow room for roads, and we only have to ask Buddy Armour how important it is to be accurate. I'm afraid if we leave that 28 in there, the developer could demand that we give him 28 lots. I believe that wording needs to change a little, like 22 plus houses or 20. I don't know what the number is, but I know because of the room it takes to build roads into a development takes away from the area allowed for housing.
So it would be based upon several things, and it would be determined during subdivision review and approval. And so the minimum lot size is 1/2 acre. So you're correct. There could be other things or other stipulations in there that would reduce it to 20 or something. But that's how many they would be allowed in a perfect world.
Yeah. So do we leave it at 28, I guess is my question, Scott. You say 22 plus or up to 28?
Well, I could, I can just amend that where I don't mention how the maximum.
All right, that's okay with me if it is with the rest of the board.
Any other questions or comments for Scott on this property rezoning?
Mr. Chairman, Scott, could this property with the water and sewer, of course, I realize they've asked, I suppose, for R2, if my memory is correct. Could they have asked for more density?
No, that's the density that would be allowed if it's R2.
But I mean, suppose they asked for higher density.
They would have to rezone to planned residential mixed use type of zoning for that.
But so far as infrastructure goes, that's possible,
It is possible, yes, sir.
but that's not the request, I understand.
Right, exactly, sir.
Thank you.
Scott, are the applicants part of the old Perkins family that was across the street there? And if I remember correctly, the railroad's at the north of that property?
I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman, if
Okay.
they are or not.
But the north section of that property is Southern Railway. Is that correct? It runs on the north side,
Yes, sir.
separation from the Valdez property? Okay,
Yes, sir, there's railroad right away.
okay. Any other questions or comments for Scott? All right, hearing none, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Vice Chair Mulvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
and I will vote yes also, Madam Clerk. Thank you so much. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Now I'll get myself back in order and go to the consent agenda, which is item number 5. The first one is a resolution regarding surplus real property. At this time, I'm going to recognize our County Attorney, J.R. Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Burke County Public Schools Board of Education has 7 surplus properties that they're wishing to dispose of. Under North Carolina law, they are not allowed to dispose of them until they have offered this surplus property to the Board of Commissioners under North Carolina General Statute 115C-518. They have asked us to consider these properties and to allow them to go ahead and sell it without the commissioners, unless the commissioners are interested in purchasing any of it. And the 7 properties are a vacant lot across the street from Freedom High School on Independence Boulevard, the old Morganton School building on South College Street, the old Chesterfield Elementary on Pax Hill Road, and then 4 tracts of property that make up the old Rutherford College Elementary in Rutherford College. The board had this on its agenda for I believe the June 2020 meeting, and tabled it until the August 2020 meeting in order to give the board time to consider whether the county would have any interest in any of these properties.
All right, thank you, J.R. Any questions for J.R.?
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 quick questions, and JR
Okay.
probably cannot answer them. One of the questions was that each one of these parcels has the value listed in our presentation. And my question was, does the school board have a policy of at what percentage that they will not accept? In other words, if it goes below 50% of the value listed, will they decline the sale of? And the second question was just a basic, what is it running for property sold in the past, of what percentage that it brings according to the listed value of the property? So I know you can't answer that, JR, but at least the questions are out there.
Right, and it would be up to the school board to determine what value they would accept for any or all of the properties. I don't believe there's any statutory authority for accepting some, except I think if they want to give away the property, it would have to be given away to a not-profit organization for their use.
Other questions or comments? Okay, let me ask you this, JR. They can sell it for whatever they want to. Is that correct?
That's right. They would probably put it up for bids under a bidding process, or if someone makes them an offer on it, they would then have to have a 10-day notice period, a public hearing 10-day notice period before they sold it, and opportunity to upset.
So if a particular group had a particular interest in a particular property, if they let the school know, the school might be able and willing to work with them on that particular property, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman Maynard, just a comment. I realize all we're doing is declining or saying we're not interested in either one of those pieces of property.
Yes,
And as JR listed and said, it is up to them to sell it. And that's up to them to determine, I guess, the minimum price. And I just, excuse me for protecting the taxpayer a little bit, hoping they get all that they can and lessen the tax burden for the taxpayers.
Thank you for that comment. Anything else? Hearing none, without objection, this item will remain on the agendas. Vice Chair Moley,
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes, sir.
and I will also vote yes. Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 2, resolution amending the Board of Commissioners 2020 meeting schedule presented by Kay Drone, Clerk to the Board. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to adopt a resolution amending our 2020 meeting schedule. The request would allow us, if approved, to use Zoom for our pre-agenda meetings for the remainder of the year and give us the option of doing Zoom or in-person meetings for the regular meetings from August through December. It did not make any other changes to the remainder of the previously adopted meeting schedule. Be happy to entertain any questions.
All right, gentlemen, questions for Kay?
Madam Clerk, what's the impetus for this? Are we convinced we cannot meet in person for some reason?
I, check with the chair and the vice chair how they would like to have these meetings due to COVID. It does create additional work for me to notice and unnotice all the special Zoom meetings because we've adopted our meeting schedule and we're doing something different. So each month we have to, cancel what we had planned to do in person in the boardroom and say, now we're going to do it via Zoom. And so that creates additional work. Just trying to give you some options because COVID is fluid. The numbers do continue to rise.
Jeff, the chair specifically wants to get back in front of the people. That's my desire to do it. I don't know what the best way is to do it. I really want to do it in August this month. I want to get back in front of the people as quickly as we can to get back to some semblance of normalcy. The Zoom for the pre-agenda meeting, I don't have a whole lot of problems with that, but I do see that it does create, especially for public hearings, we have to have an additional meeting if we do have a public hearing, if we don't meet. But it's my desire to get back in our commission chambers as quickly as possible. Taking into consideration the reports that come out every day from the health department. There is a pattern, but I don't know what I'm not ready to say what a pattern is right now. I don't think Rebecca's ready to say that there's a pattern of decline, but I think we are still doing the reporting daily. There are still people getting COVID. It is still here. Some people are some of our dear friends and at other counties and other cities have gotten COVID, but we just need to proceed cautiously. So that's the step that I wanted to put in front of you. If we can kind of go Zoom on the pre-agenda and then go to our chambers on the regular meetings. I know that doesn't satisfy a lot of people, but that's my desire right now, is to try to move forward to some normalcy as quick as we can.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Allow me a comment, please.
Yes, sir.
I would encourage everybody, and especially people who are in question. I personally think that we should be concentrating on how many people actually have it. And when we add to it every day and the number climbs and we don't take off the ones that were healed or no longer have the virus, then the number looks really bad. But Debbie has really made an excellent chart. You need to read that second page to be fully informed in just how many active cases we really have. And I think those are beginning to decline a little bit. I don't know if they are in Burke, but they are in some places. But I think we have to continue to do what we're doing because of the state laws and the federal laws and what the governor wants you to do. And it's just, Kay, if I understand that we're doing this to have a Zoom meetings without having to go through the process twice a month to get it on Zoom. But at any time, we can change and go back to live meetings and at the boardroom as we see fit. And from that standpoint, I think it's a safe ruling, if you don't mind.
If I could comment to that, section 1 says that all the pre-agenda meetings September through December would be Zoom. I could amend that to say, or in the boardroom, like I did in section 2, to give some options to go either way. And it would prevent having to send out special meeting notices and cancellation notices. Just trying to comply with the open meetings and notice requirements, make it a little easier.
I think that's an excellent solution, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Maynard. Gentlemen, you did hear Maynard suggesting that we put the word "or" for Zoom meetings, and if you don't have any problems with that. Any other comments? All right, hearing none, and without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Vice Chair Mulvey?
Yes.
Commissioner Abley?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
And I will vote yes too. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, moving on to item number 3 it's an appointment to the Department of Social Services Board presented by Kay Drone, Clerk of the Board. Clerk.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The county commissioners appoint 2 members to the 5-member board of social services. Seat number 1 was occupied by Lisa Dean, whose term ended June 30th. She is not seeking reappointment. An application was received from Miss Nancy Wood, and the term of appointment is for 3 years. I can report that I did receive a telephone call from a lady who may be interested, and if I get another application, I will move this item to your items for decision part of the agenda.
All right, thank you, Kay. Gentlemen, questions for Kay on this appointment? All right, hearing none without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Vice Chair Mulvey?
Yes.
Commissioner Abley?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes, sir.
And I will vote yes also. Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 4 is a reappointment to the well-known Industrial Revenue Bond Board. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a board that aids in the financing of industrial and manufacturing facilities. And we have the terms of appointment for John Branston, seat number 2, Margaret Pierce, seat 4, and Ronnie Thompson, seat 6, end August 31st, 2020. All three members are seeking reappointment, and the term is a whopping 6 years.
Whoa.
This
All right,
board meets
gentlemen.
as needed.
Okay. Gentlemen, questions for Kay on this one?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Madam Clerk, you have, in your summary, you say seat 2, but in your suggested motion, you show a seat 1.
Thank you. I will get that corrected.
Okay, any other corrections or comments?
Just out of curiosity, you say meet as needed. How often is that, Kay? Do you know?
Hope Hopkins at BDI kind of manages this board, and I don't think they've met in a very long time.
In 6 years.
So it's an easy appointment. Okay.
When I was in Cabarrus, we had one meeting of the Industrial Revenue Bond Board while I was there.
Okay.
Is it one of those boards we have to have?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
It's a board that is needed if the county is going to issue industrial revenue bonds, but those are sort of fallen out of favor
Mhm.
over the last 10 years because of the certificates of participation and those sorts of things. So it's probably a board that won't be around much longer.
Okay. All right, anything else? All right, hearing nothing, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Vice Chair Mulway.
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Mr. Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes, sir.
and I will also vote yes. All right, moving on to item number 5 will be appointments to the planning board, and that will be by Madam Clerk.
Okay, thank you very much. This, we've had a resignation on seat number 3 on the planning board, which represents the east. Seat number 7 on the planning board alternates from the east to the west every term. And the east term ends September 30th, which means it will become a west seat in October. So this is a request to move Shannon Stanbury, who is in seat number 7, which right now represents the east, to seat number 3, which represents the east. Because there's only 1 month left in this unexpired term, we're requesting that Ms. Stanbury be allowed to complete the remainder of that unexpired term, and a full 3-year term is what we're asking. The second request is to appoint Joyce Cunahan to seat number 7 for a 3-year term effective September 30th, 2020, when this seat reverts to the west. Ms. Joyce is a west resident. And the third part would be to remove Gary Kling's name from the roster and thank him for his service.
All right, gentlemen, questions for Kay on this matter? Kay, 1 year, and I don't remember when it was years back, I asked, I think, if we could not have a west seat in the east and an east seat. Can we not do that so we don't have to rotate?
Well, for seat number 7,
But it
I
says,
mean, you've got 3 east, 3 west, and 1 that flip-flops every term.
okay. So
And I
it's
have
3
asked Mr. Carpenter, as he rewrites the zoning ordinance, that if he could come up with something that does not flip-flop every term. It is quite challenging to keep up with, is it east or is it west? And then you have to move people around when their seat changes and they no longer comply.
Miles, Scott is sitting there with you. Please make sure that he just heard what Kay and I were talking about, sir, about let's get rid of the flip-flop. Any other questions for Kay on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, Maynard
Yes,
Taylor,
sir.
as
Yes, sir.
long as I've been on the board, that's been the case. And in all fairness, it's the only way to have the balance that you need on that board. And we could have a discussion about that, and I would point out several things that's the reason it is. And that's the reason it works so well. It does flip-flop, but it also gives you the all-important balance for that board.
Is there not a balance though, Maynard, since you have 3 from the east and 3 from the west? Or am I missing something?
No, you would have 4 from one and 4 from the other one, and the 4 against 3 could be it from the same district running many terms, which would be out of balance.
Okay. All right. Without objection, this item will remain on that agenda. Vice Chair Mulway,
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yep.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes, sir.
and the chair votes yes. All right. Thank you so very much. Moving on to number 6, is an appointment to the Regional Aging Advisory Committee. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request to reappoint Karen Robinson to seat number 1 on the Regional Aging Advisory Committee for the remainder of a 1-year term ending June 30th, 2021, and to reappoint Jerry Probst, seat number 3, for the remainder of a 2-year term ending June 30th, 2022.
All right, gentlemen, questions for Kay on this matter? All right, hearing none without objection. Go ahead. Anybody? Okay, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Vice Chair Mulway,
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes, Madam Clerk. Moving on to item number 7 from General Services is a contract with U.S. Tire and Recycling Partners presented by Miles Champion, our General Services Director. Miles?
Good afternoon. Good to see you all. Can you hear me okay?
Move just a little closer to the microphone if you can.
Is that better?
Yes.
A good deal. Okay. Good afternoon. This is the contract for U.S. Tire and Recycling. Burke County has chosen to recycle scrap tires whenever possible. It has been contracting with a tire recycling company, U.S. Tire Recycling Partners, LP, through a service contract. The contractor stages a van trailer at each of the county's designated sites to receive, transport, and properly dispose of scrap tires loaded into the trailers. The volume of scrap tires varies from year to year, and therefore the cost of disposing of scrap tires is based on weight and adjusted once per year based on Consumer Price Index. The base rate for disposal is $77.52 per ton. The estimated cost of the scrap tire disposal for fiscal year 2020 to 21 is $110,000. The proposed contract with U.S. Tire Recycling Partners, LP, is attached for your review. And this $110,000 has been included in this year's budget. Staff recommends approval. Any questions?
Gentlemen, you've heard the presentation. Any question from Miles on this contract matter?
Yes, I have several, Maynard, here. That's a 30% increase, Miles, from last year. And I guess the questions are, how long has it been since we have increased? And number 2 question would be, did we get competitive bids? I think that the trailers being there for 30 days, over 30 days, you also have $150 additional fee. And I'm just wondering if we got competitive bids, and are we looking at that because there's no involvement of those employees except delivering the truck and picking it up. Is that correct?
Well, also the cost is actually disposing of the tires once they receive them. So the fact that the trailers are on site just gives us a way to dispose of them properly. So the cost is in the disposal of them once they receive them. I don't know that we've ever paid $150 for having a trailer over the 30 days. Actually, when I ran the numbers, if you're interested, last year we recycled 1,248 tons of tires. Almost exactly 2/3 of them were actually brought to the landfill and put in the trailers there. And they fill up quite rapidly, so they don't sit there very long. The other about five other locations are typically at tire stores, and they fill up quite rapidly too. So right now, we actually had an increase from this past year of only $2.40 a ton from last year. So we also do have a $15 per load environmental fee that was added to it, but that's a very nominal fee. So we actually, I think, budgeted about the same amount of money as we have the last several years for tire disposal.
Well, the follow-up question, there's my first cousin owns one of them. There's a lot of businesses out there that are reclaiming and reusing tires, and they pay for used tires. Is there a market to sell those tires?
I don't know. I would have to investigate that. This program's worked very well for us because we don't have a lot of tires laying on the sides of the roads. So a lot of people just want to get rid of their tires. Yes, there are some recyclers out there. Interestingly enough, a lot of those private small recycling companies bring us tires that they can't do anything with. So every day we have several loads of, pickup truck loads of tires from what we typically see somebody just bringing in tires they can't use. Now,
well, I fully agree with recycling. You don't have to be a farmer long till you pile up a landful of tires trying to get ready to sow a crop, but they do need to be recycled properly. And I was just questioning the increase that was more than 30%. I felt like that was a little high. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from Miles on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, Miles, what other options do we have? What if we just didn't do this?
Well, it's illegal to landfill the tires, so we can't actually do anything with them at the landfill. They have to leave. Typically, in the past year since I've been here, we've been advertising for additional bids, and U.S. Tire is the only one that ever submits the bid. Mostly because this is not an easy industry to recycle. So we have solicited other possibilities, but I would not recommend getting into the tire grinding business. You still have to get rid of it. So I think this is our most productive and safest way. U.S. Tire does all the paperwork for disposal for it. So that relieves us of that responsibility also.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just for information and education, if you buy a small 6 or 8 foot or smaller bush hog to go behind the tractor, those wheels on the back of them will never go flat. They're made of tires that have been recycled and cut and molded, cut in a style that they make a tire.
Thank you,
I
sir.
would like to comment. There is a company in Hickory that does that same kind of thing to make tires for rollout garbage bins. However, the only tire that they will accept because of the process is certain types of truck tires. However, they are recycling and building new tires for those bins in Hickory. So we've got somebody locally that's turning that back into a product. However, I'm not sure that would be something we would want to get into in separating all that.
Okay. Thank you, Miles. Thank you, Maynard.
Thank you.
Questions or comments? All right, hearing none without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Vice Chair Moe,
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
and I will vote yes also. Thank you. Moving on to item number 8 is a reclassification request of a 911 IT manager to 911 system administrator. And this will be presented by our new IT director, Scott Black. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. So in July, when Brant Meredith was promoted to the assistant IT director, his position became vacant at the 911 center. And so in talking with Brock and HR, Margaret, we took a look at the job duties of this position, and it hasn't for a couple of years had any supervisory roles in it. The description we had was when it was initially set up as the IT being completely under the 911 center, and a couple of years ago we moved that back under the county's IT department. And so when that position opened up, we looked at it and we thought it was probably appropriate to adjust the title and take out those supervisory duties to just kind of get it back in line with what was appropriate. The position, of course, is they coordinate and manage all the systems over at the 911 center and take care of that. It would stay at the same pay grade that it currently is, grade 26. It keeps it in line with other administrator IT positions like the network administrator and the applications analyst who maintains systems like the Munis finance system, the tax system, things like that. So I'll take any questions you've got.
All right, thank you, Scott, for that presentation. Questions for Scott, gentlemen? Hearing none without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Vice Chair Moe?
Yes.
Commissioner Abley?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes, sir.
And chair votes yes also. All right, moving on, item number 9 from JCPC will be appointments to seats number 2 and seat number 4. That will be presented by AJ Katu, JCPC Administrator. AJ?
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. The rain's pretty loud. So the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council is asking to replace one member and incorporate a new member. For seat number 2, the Chief of Police wishes to send a new designee for their position. Ryan Lander has been our designee recently, and we of course wish to thank him for his service. And for the District Attorney's Office, they are offering ADA Andrea Plyler for seat number 4, and respectfully, both of these changes are for the Commissioner's consideration.
All right, gentlemen, you've heard AJ's presentation. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, just one. Andrea is an excellent candidate to be in that position. I just wish we had a Burke County citizen who was available for it, but she will be an excellent member of that board.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments?
AJ, is this the first time we've seen the district attorney provide a designee?
In a very long time, yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Jeff, didn't mean to walk on you there.
All right.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Vice Chair Moe?
Yes.
Commissioner Abley?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
And I will vote yes also. Thank you so much. Moving on, item number 10 from Tax Department, items number 10 and 11 will be the release refund report for 2020 and a tax collection report for 2020. And that will be from Danny Eisenhower, Tax Administrator. Danny?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. The release refund report for 2020, we have releases in the amount of $84,727.86. Of that, we had $75,213.87 that was rebilled, which give us a net release of $9,513.99. Refunds in the amount of $936.48. just a little note to that, the report shows what looks like a very large number there out of sequence. But the way that the tax system works is if we have pre-bills, in other words, somebody that makes a payment on a bill before the bills come out, or we create a bill, what we call a demand bill, then during the billing process, all of those bills are released and then rebilled. That's the reason you see those two very huge numbers there. So it's the $9,500 is really pretty typical of July. We have VTS refunds. I put to be determined. The reporting from the VTS, state VTS system was not working what I felt properly, and it showed 0, and I think there is something there, so I should have something in a couple of days to put in that blank.
Any questions for Danny? All right, without objection, Vice Chair Mulwee,
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. All right, Danny, if you'll move into your collection report.
Okay, collection report, if you notice, it's a little different format than what I've done in the past months. I got to thinking the way that I had been presenting it is a little bit harder to read, so I tried to make it a little easier on you. So we'll start off here at the top. We've got property tax. Our budget is $44,250,000. We've collected $22,343. Excuse me, $43,582.98, which is about 50.5% of property tax. If you go on down, you got the motor vehicles. We've collected a little over 10% of that. The two together, based on budget, we have collected 46.70%. Then on delinquent taxes, we are at 22.96%. Late list penalties, we're at 39.98. This again, the 119,000 is it struck me as being a wrong number because typically we're $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 in July, but we did have a couple industries that listed their taxes late and had to pay late penalties, so that's a very large number included in there. Then if you look on down at the other grid, you'll see our actual levy at this point in time. Now this is not budget, but this is levy, is $43,777,993, and we've collected collected $22,343,582, which is a little over 51%.
All right, questions for Danny on the collection report?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Danny, if you'll look at the motor vehicle tax, the balance to collect, I think you got a wrong number there.
I certainly do. I will get that corrected. I apologize.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments or corrections? All right, hearing none, without objection, Vice Chair Mulwee. Vice Chair Mulwee, okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes, Kay. Let's move on to item number 12 is Danny's collections annual settlement report for 2019-2020. Danny?
Okay, gentlemen. As you can read there, the North Carolina General Statute 105-373 requires the tax collector to report to the governing body after July 1st and before September 1st each year. Before being charged with current fiscal year taxes, all paid and unpaid taxes for the preceding year, and any other sums collected. These amounts include paid and unpaid for real and personal property, along with what we refer to as registered motor vehicles or VTS, and any associated charges such as landfill user fees, interest, and penalty. The following reports represents the sums that the tax collector shall be credited with, and delinquents the tax collector shall be charged to collect in the current fiscal year. In compliance with General Statute 105-373 A1 and 3 include our collection reports for the years 2009 through 2019. These reports document the amounts due, amounts paid by levy type and by year, and they're arranged in the following sections. And what I'll do is I'll skip to the next page. Property tax, you'll see there that we had prepayments a little over $21,000. We had tax of a little over $44 million, delinquent tax of $768,000 for a total of $44,851,377.60. Excuse me. The next section are related collections, and this also is county only. And you see there we got the advertisement, garnishment, interest, landfill user fees, late list penalties, migrated landfill user fee, which is from the old legacy tax system. Also migrated cost is from that, miscellaneous cost, the NSF penalty, and taxes for all years. So there we have a total of $47,948,825.05. Tag and tax, which we normally refer to as the VTS, we had interest a little over $20,000, tax $4.9 million for a little over $4.9 million total. Next page, section 3, property taxes and charges for all other jurisdictions. Now this does not include the county. So we had total collections there of $4,767,189.93. We also have tag and tax or VTS on other jurisdictions. And you'll notice there that we have tag and tax, we have the interest. The city of Hickory has a $5 tag fee. The city of Morganton has a $20 tag fee. So you've got a total there of $1,871,065.93. The chargeback of delinquent taxes and related charges, county we're charging back $2,238,006.46. All other jurisdictions, $252,950.25 for the total of $2.4 million. Amounts not charged back, so that would be your amounts that are over 10 years old. On the county, we've got $58,700.52. All other jurisdictions is $11,696.38 for a total of $70,396.90. And that does look very close to what we've had in prior years. Section 7, additional revenues. We have the gross vehicle rental tax that we collect for Burke County and for the city of Hickory. Morganton does not participate. We've got occupancy tax, and I think a lot of you are probably familiar with that on our motel occupancy. There's an additional tax, late filing fees, and penalties there that also fall in with that. Beer and wine, we have a late fee. We have beer on premises, beer on or off premises, and same for wine. So there we've got a total of $538,914.74.
Danny?
Yes, sir.
Just curiosity, when you say Morganton doesn't participate, does that mean they receive their rental vehicle tax directly, or?
No, they do not participate in that program. The county collects for any county or municipality that did a resolution on that, and Hickory and Burke County were the only two that did resolutions. So if let's say John Green rents a car out for a week, Burke County gets rental taxes on it, but Morganton does not because they're not a participating member.
Okay. Under the beer and wine taxes, are those, would that be taxes that would come from your typical grocery stores?
Those are, you have a beer and wine license that you have to purchase if you sell, like a grocery store would have a off-premises license, and a Catawba brewery down here would have an off-premises and an on-premises license. And they may also have one for wine. We do those in, I believe it's April. We send out those notices, and they start purchasing their beer and wine permits here.
So
But
those
it's not
are,
it's not a sales tax. It's permit tax.
okay, I thought that wasn't nearly enough to be a sales tax.
No, not nearly. That would Margaret would see that on the sales tax reports.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Delinquent taxpayers, it also, the general statute says that we need to list those. I've put them in different categories to make it easier for everyone to see what it is. So, Section 8 is for the business personal property, those that'll roll over as delinquents. And you see business gap. What that is, if you know, on the BTS, we started sending out gap bills. So if someone has a motor vehicle, let's say the tag expired in June, they did not renew it until August, then they would have a 2-month gap that we're responsible for billing for. And so because our numbers look so, the gap bills are harder to collect. We're collecting about 50% of those, so I wanted to show them as a different item on here. It's usually a low-cost bill, but there's a large quantity of them. And we have those on business personal property and on regular personal property. And you also see the real property there, and we had one public utility. So we had the $887,150 that rolled over from 2019.
Mr. Chairman. Danny, that's still collectible though, right?
Still collectible, yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
And then Section 12 is a new one that I've sort of wanted to put on there just to show you the work that staff is doing, and I put 3 years on there. So enforcement, different types of enforced collection remedies that we're doing. We have debt set off, we have bank garnishments, we have wage garnishments, and we have mortgage foreclosure. And just wanted to show you that the number of transactions are cases that we're doing. So like on debt set off, if you see there, we had a big year in the middle that we did a lot of them. We did a lot of research finding people's social security numbers, then we submit it to debt set off. And what that does is brings in their, if they get an income tax return, a state income tax return, then we're first in line unless another government organization is there before us, but we will get our money before they get their refund. Bank garnishments, we use those very selectively. Use them a lot on businesses, very seldom on individual, but you guys gave us authority to use those. It's by general statute, but I still got your blessing on it. We don't like to use those because if we garnish an individual and we take all his money out of his savings account, then he might not have money to pay his bills. So we use that very sparingly. Wage garnishment, we can get up to 10% of their wage. That's done with the employers. I'm sure all of you are familiar with that. And of course, the most drastic is the mortgage foreclosure. And we do have quite a few accounts with Kenya Law in Asheville, and are collecting quite a bit. So I hope that gives you a good idea of what's going on. Sort of to end it, I say I certify that the collection staff has made diligent efforts in using collection remedies available by statute, notices, second notices, wage garnishment, bank attachment, debt set off, foreclosure, and delinquent collection service. to collect all delinquent debts. These delinquent debts are tax years 2009 through 2018, including those 2019 that became delinquent after January 5th of 2020. I respectfully request Burke County Board of Commissioners to accept this report as the annual settlement for fiscal year ending June 30, 2020.
Thank you, Danny. Gentlemen, any questions about the annual settlement report?
Mr. Chairman, Danny, we must be doing better. When you look at the year 2020, you got $772,056.84. Jump over to the June 30th, 18 ending, you got $1,716,262.69. Are we doing that much better in collecting the taxes, or?
I believe, Commissioner Taylor, that you're comparing two different numbers. I will be glad to furnish you something that shows you the difference in collections year to year. Let me look right here.
Well, even each category, well, not all the way, but each category on your final graph, your final two numbers for the year is more than the other ones, with the exception of the bank garnishments was 47,000, and in the bank garnishment in 18 was only 18,302.
Okay, you're looking on this chart here. What this number is not reflecting what we collected. This number is reflecting how much money we put in that program in those enforced collections.
Yes, I know that.
Yeah.
But my point to that, the last year is less than half what the 2018 year was.
What happens on that? If you look at the mortgage style foreclosures, you'll see a big difference there. And what happens is we've already got, let's say that the attorney has already got 2 years on there, and then we're adding a third year. So it's not a true number as to what the total amount is in there.
Okay.
What I'm after more there is just to show you the number of actions that we have taken.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none without objection, Vice Chair Mulvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
and I vote yes also, Madam Clerk. Moving on to item number 13 is an order for Danny to collect the 2020 taxes. Danny?
Okay, gentlemen. General Statute 105-321 requires the governing body to order the tax collector to collect the taxes charged in the records. This includes current years and any delinquent taxes and associated charges for the previous 10 years. The amounts charged back from the prior years, county taxes and other charges, $2,238,006.46. From all other jurisdictions, $252,950.25, for a total of $2,490,956.71.
All right, questions or concerns on this matter? All right, without objection, Vice Chair Mulvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes, sir.
and the chair votes yes also. Thank you so very much, Danny. Great report.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Moving on to item number 6, our items for a decision. Our first item will be the purchase or the request for purchase of narcotics vehicles using restricted funds, and that will be presented by Sheriff Steve Wisnett. Sheriff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. We've had a violent day. We've got a shooting in progress now. We've had a shooting through an occupied dwelling this morning, so it's been on the radio here. The first one is we've got $113,000 in restricted account to be used for law enforcement. And the first item is we'd like to use $78,351.23 of that fund to purchase 3 vehicles and equip those.
All right, questions or comments for the sheriff on this matter?
Sheriff, you said 3 vehicles and I lost the rest of what you said. I couldn't hear you.
We just wanted to purchase 3 vehicles and equip those at a cost of $78,351.23.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for the sheriff on this matter?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I got a little bit of a problem here with, we dissolved narcotics and an appropriation of $78,351.23 of fund balance. And then I find that we're going to go back and purchase narcotic vehicles for the like amount. Why are we doing this, I guess is the question. Why did we dissolve it and then decide to reinstate it, Sheriff?
Yeah, we never did resolve narcotics. You can't dissolve narcotics. No law enforcement agency can dissolve narcotics officers. What we did was the Burke County Narcotics Task Force made up of multiple agencies. That was dissolved. And then those funds that was in that task force were transferred to the Burke County Criminal Investigation Division. And we've got our narcotics division now falls under the lieutenant of the Criminal Investigations Division, but we still have a group of detectives that specialize in narcotics enforcement.
So how long have we been since we dissolved the narcotic task force?
That was last year.
Last year?
Yes.
So 1 year? Basically 1 year?
Yeah, and I forgot exactly when we, and Brian may be able to share the exact time that we dissolved that. He was the involved in that the dissolving of that group and then transferring these funds, along with Margaret, transferring these funds to the sheriff's office.
Well, you're requesting later 3 vehicles. How many is on the task force? 3?
We got 4.
4? That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Vice Chair Mulvey?
Yes.
Commissioner Abley?
Yes.
Mr. Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes, sir.
And I will vote yes also. Moving on to item number 2 is a request to reinstate a part-time background investigator position. That will also be presented by the sheriff. Steve?
Thank you, sir. Last year, when we were trying to hire the additional staff for the jail, we asked for the commissioners to fund an investigator that we contracted with, and we ended up contracting with a former captain of the sheriff's office to do background investigations. Without that contract, we have to assign those to detectives that are really overworked now. And you were kind enough last year to give us that ability to hire that contractor to do those for us. As you see in the information we provided, as of July 16th of 2020, the jail had 19 vacancies. That is now moved up to 21 vacancies that we are struggling to fill. We have a very lean applicant pool, and we're not being able to retain those officers. Every other division in the sheriff's office is staffed, and we don't have any issues, but the detention officers are very difficult to hire and retain, and that's pretty consistent throughout the state and the nation, especially with COVID and the things that's happening in jails. North Carolina's got some new jail rules that they've been talking about and changing. So it's a really tough job. So we're asking that we be allowed to, again, contract with, and we would choose the captain that we chose last time, to do these background investigations. And out of 21, she will have to interview a lot of people to get 21 people hired. And I do think it's important to let our regular detectives or criminal detectives to continue serving the public through investigating criminal activity and making arrests and taking those people to court, and allow just a contractor to do these background investigations. As you see in paragraph 2, it takes about an average of 40 hours to complete one investigation. And we've been using our detectives now. We've been working them hard, but we are not finding appropriate candidates. I think out of the last 5 or 6 that we've done background investigations, the people did not pass the background investigation. So hiring one person can consume a significant amount of time in these investigations.
All right, thanks, Sheriff. Questions or comments for the sheriff on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I have 2. The first one is, Sheriff, is there not an employee service somewhere that might do this at a less amount of money? I know 19, needing 19, you just upped that to 21, but at 40 hours a week, that's 21 weeks. And it appears to me there should be a specialty employment service that could handle that for you. And the second question to that would be, how's other sheriff departments in the area handling that situation? They obviously have positions available. Are they hiring special people? Or, well, I'm trying to answer the question. The question is, how are they resolving this issue?
I think a lot of sheriffs in the exact same situation Burke County's in. And our situation is a little bit different in that the commissioners gave us 12 new officers to hire to try to get up to a staffing level that we could safely start renting beds. We had that conversation previously about the numbers that we felt like we needed to be able to safely increase the bed usage and start renting beds to other sheriff's offices. The problem that everybody's having is it's difficult to hire. Our problem has been exacerbated by having these additional 12 and continuing to lose people. So I think it's a common situation throughout. From my understanding, talking to Catawba County, they have been hiring now for over a year, and they cannot fill their vacancies. They're upgrading their jail and increasing the bed space. The problem with hiring an outside agency, I don't think that, from my experience, there's been issues with that. If we use somebody that knows, the sheriff's office knows the duties that the officers would be performing, it's a much better situation. And we were very pleased with Captain Weatherman's background investigations when she did those for us before. I don't know if there are agencies that have a good reputation that can do that for us, but we have always desired to use our own people, retired people that have been here for years and years and understand the sheriff's office and what those positions require.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask Brian a question? How about our own human resource department? Could they be a benefit to do some of this?
I believe they've got about all they can handle with what they're doing now. Most of the HR department are part-time employees.
Okay.
Mr. Todd, I'll say this too. You really need, the background investigators need to be law enforcement officers or have served in the law enforcement field. It's a different type people that you're hiring, and that's what you find. And law enforcement people have watched a lot of TV, and then when they come, it's not like on TV, and it's a very demanding job, and especially our jail is a very demanding position. So we realize that, and so we look for people that we feel like can, do the job effectively.
Well, I'm not trying to, excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I'm not suggesting that you do completely away with that. I understand that. But if somebody could do, say, 20 or 50% of it, and then they take over. But I guess I'm saying, is there not somebody that could filter those people and take the 40-hour task down or cut it down to 20 hours just by having somebody to filter them and reject those that we know we can't use, and then your person takes over for the last 20 hours or the final questioning or reviewing or evaluating. But it seems like 40 hours is a lot of interviewing for one person to endure, not only the person doing the interviewing, but the person being interviewed.
Yeah, and your question's a good one. And we do look at those applicants before they're ever put in background. They go through several different phases. And one of them, your first person that you meet when you apply for the sheriff's office is the major, Banks Heintzman. And what we do is people fill out, and it's a very lengthy application package. And so what the major has found to be helpful for years and years now is that he is the one that sits down with all the applicants when they first come in, just to make sure that all the paperwork has been completed. And that's a task in itself. But so they have a first person that's looking at that, and then he really does the primary decisions of, do we take them to the next task? Because a lot of them really don't make it past the major. The ones that do, then they are assigned to an investigator that starts that process.
Any other questions?
And I'd like to share this too, Mr. Chairman, is
go right ahead, Sheriff.
HR has been very helpful because when you put something out, a vacancy notice on one of these online services, you will get a lot of people that could never ever qualify. So I would like to thank HR for their assistance, and they are looking at those and never even sending us those people that would never qualify. So we've been working with HR, and they've been very helpful in cutting those numbers down dramatically, so we're not having to spend any time on them. Once they reach a level that they feel they can make it to the next step, then they complete that package, and it's difficult to do too. There's a lot of information that they have to fill out. So there is several different levels before it's actually assigned to a person to do the background investigation.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
One quick question for the sheriff. And I'm looking through this information, and I'm just going to restate this. So if we got all these lap salaries put into the budget, the jail budget, and those have not been utilized, why can't you use that money to fill this position?
Yeah, we don't really care where it comes from. If the county wants to move it out of lap salaries and let us do this, that would be fine.
That's what the motion says, Scott. That it will come from 30,000 lap salary.
Yeah.
Is this investigator DCI certified, Sheriff?
I don't think she is anymore. She
Okay.
was, but I don't think she is any longer.
Margaret, I'm going to assume that we have ample amount of lap salary monies in the sheriff's budget.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none without objection. Vice Chair Mulwee?
Yes.
Commissioner Abley?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Thank you so very much. All right, moving on to item number 3 is the request for law enforcement legal consultants that will also be presented by the sheriff. Steve?
Thank you, sir. I think we've asked for this for about every year since I've been sheriff. We're asking that we use the funding from this restricted account that I talked about purchasing the 3 vehicles from to contract with Smith & Rogers, a law firm that does this for many, many sheriff's offices. I think a lot of sheriff's offices around us have this. A lot of police departments have it. But what's unique about it is that these people are on call 24/7. And when we have a decision to make, whether we kick a door in or whether we arrest somebody, whether we need to, for what many legal reasons, they're available 24/7. So I know major sheriff's offices that have their own attorneys contract with this company. And most of these people are former prosecutors. They've served in state prosecutors. I think there's been some federal prosecutors. So that's their expertise. My understanding is they can answer most calls immediately when you ask them. And it's very beneficial for us. And it will make us feel a whole lot better about not having to make decisions on your own or guess what would be the most appropriate thing to do. So we're excited about the possibility of being able to contract with this company. It's $23,835 annually. It starts for a year. The contract begins whenever you contract with them for a year. You're not obligated to continue it year after year. And it's something that we feel like will be very beneficial to Burke County Sheriff's Office and also the commissioners, and maybe keep us from facing a lawsuit where we've made a wrong legal decision in enforcing the law.
Thank you, Sheriff. Any questions or comments for the sheriff?
Mr. Chairman Maynard, I've got down here, this is probably a good investment for the county. I think what we have to realize is that of all the things going on in our modern day world, it's not always pleasant. And when you get into a situation that you're rattled already because of the situation, I feel like it's a good investment that they got somebody somewhere that they can dial and immediately get a second opinion, if nothing else, in what their actions ought to be. And I think the sheriff's right one time would probably save us $23,000 in legal fees. So I don't have any problem with this.
Thank you, sir. Sheriff, let me ask you one question about the funds that we have, the restricted funds right now. Are we replenishing those funds through drug confiscations and awards by the court in any manner?
Yes, and we have we've submitted some. I have to sign forms, and in fact, the county attorney has to sign the same form too when we are subject to receiving some of those funds. And we're probably looking at a couple $100,000 requested funds that we should receive.
All right, great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, without objection, Vice Chair Mulway.
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes, sir.
and the chairman votes yes. Thank you so very much. All right, moving on to item number 4. Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Item number 4 is regarding the repair to the courthouse wall, $15,000. And that's going to be presented by Brian Steen, County Manager. We are glad to have along with us today Morganton City Manager Sally Sandy, who will also speak on this. Brian, you going first or Sally?
I can, but if the city manager wants to go ahead and be a little, give you some background how this comes about, and
okay,
we're only being
all right, let's move over. We'll move over to Sally. Sally, welcome.
Hey guys, how are you?
Wonderful.
So this is the discussion regarding the existing rock wall around the old courthouse square. And the discussion that goes along with the planned renovation project and creation of the outdoor stage area and the improvements to the courthouse square. This project has been going on now for several years, and working with our architects, they have gone through several reiterations of estimates for what it would take to repair the existing rock wall. Over the years, there's been damage to it. There's been different things that have happened. We've had city folks that have repaired it not very well, actually, not really having that skill set, but trying to keep the pieces of it, I guess, secure, so that it would be at least semi-safe. As a part of the redo, we felt like we needed to look at this rock wall, and obviously, I think it's overwhelming that everyone thinks that we should keep it, and certainly it is a part of the historic square. And in doing so, the walls on West Union Street, the walls on South Sterling Street, and the section of wall on North Green Street all need repair. Green Street is in the worst shape and is going to require some demolition and then some rebuilding. What has happened is the architect has gone through several iterations. Their first estimate after they came on site was around $20,000. Their second estimate after they did some measuring and some more investigative work went up, and this was in May, to almost $38,000. When we had our pre-bid conference, and we had 12 contractors that attended that in early June, everyone talked about the wall, and we met on site, and there was a real feeling that if we left this up to the contractors in just a bid, that we had a real possibility of being taken advantage of. And so a recommendation out of that was that we talked to a stonemason in this area. And so we did. We talked to Jeff McGee, who did the stonework on the Valdez City Hall and some work around Valdez. Jeff indicated to us that it was the scale of the project, the size of the project is not something that he would want to do. And we actually felt better about that, because we felt better about getting an estimate, if you will, from a stonemason that didn't want the work, that didn't want to do the job. He suggested that in our bid process, we set an allowance, much like a contractor would do if you were building your house, for cabinets, for carpet, or whatever that is, and that every contractor that bid on the job had the same allowance. Obviously, the risk with that is if they were going to come in less on this item, then we put more in. If they were going to come in tremendously more, then they've got, if their sub does, then they've got to eat that or make up the difference somewhere else. So after doing that, we thought about it, and so we did put allowances in the bid process. For the West Union and South Sterling Street, and I believe you all have had this information provided to you, we put an allowance of $30,000. That's about 1,200 square feet, and Jeff indicated that work could be done, because again, that's repair and no demolition he feels is required there, for about $25 a square foot. Green Street is a different animal, and that is really where most of the deterioration has occurred, and that's why he thinks we need demolition and then some rebuilding of that, and he estimated that at $45 a square foot, and that's about 1,000 feet, and so that's about $45,000. So I know that you all have been discussing, whether we would amend the lease agreement and you all would give up any future obligation or responsibility towards sharing rock wall repairs or anything like that with us. In looking at these numbers, I asked Brian, I said, would the county agree that if the city paid for the Green Street, which is the demolition and then the reusing of the product to rebuild and to repoint the wall, if we paid the $45,000 for that, for the 30, which would be for, again, West Union and South Sterling, would the county consider splitting that 50-50 as per our agreement, which would be $15,000 each, and leaving the agreement in place? And if 30 years from now or 25 years from now something has to happen, the city and the county would work on it together. We certainly expect that this repair is going to outlast probably any of us, we hope. And in doing that 15,000, certainly we offered, it doesn't have to be in this budget year. It could be in the following one, or it could be divided over a couple after that. Although I know as you start looking at small enough numbers to have to do something year after year is maybe more work than it's worth. So that's it.
Thank you, Sally, for that great presentation. Gentlemen, questions for Sally? Anyone? Brian, anything you want to add?
No, I think it'd be my advice to go ahead and move forward with this. The issue with the amended lease is another matter, but as far as the project, I would suggest that we move forward with that.
Okay. JR, anything from the legal side?
I wouldn't move forward. I wouldn't move forward, Mr. Chairman, without a signed amendment agreement. The board's already approved it at the $10,000 level.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Start unpacking some books here shortly. And I'm gonna need space.
So may I ask a question?
Hang on 1 minute, Sally. We had some background noise there.
JR,
Jeff, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
yeah, JR, when you say amend, you're talking about just changing the 10,000 to 15,000 that we agreed and continue with our joint responsibility down the road?
Well, I prepared an amendment to the lease agreement that covered this and soil borings and several other aspects of what the city wants to do with the property. Y'all approved that in the June meeting with the $10,000 figure. I would say not going forward until the city signs off on the lease amendment with our amount limited to now 15,000.
So refresh my memory, did we include going down the road our joint responsibility for the wall, or did we amend that to say this was our end of our responsibility?
In the amendment, it says it's the end of our responsibility. That the city as the 40-year lessee would be responsible for any other upkeep of the wall during the 40-year period.
Mr. Chairman, Maynard Taylor, does that amendment that we're referring to, and I'll recall it, but I don't remember it word for word, but does it fulfill the contract we now have with the city of Morganton at 15,000? Does it fulfill, without that amendment, what would we be doing with the city of Morganton on this issue?
I'm not sure I understand that question.
We'd agreed to 10,000 before. And then what we're just saying is we're just going to change that 10 in the amendment to 15, have the city sign off, and I guess it'll come before us again in 2 weeks. Or does it need to?
Right. I don't know if the city has approved it at their meeting last night or not. It was my understanding they were going to consider it then.
Well, I didn't get the question answered.
May I say what happened last night? Will that help?
Yeah, that will help, Sally, if you tell us what happened last night.
So actually, JR, that was not on the agenda for last night because of the discussion today. And this going on, I guess that the way that the council was looking at it is that the $15,000 and keeping the joint responsibility going forward was our counter offer, I guess, to the 10,000 and no further obligation proposal. Maynard, to your question, under the current agreement, prior to your adopting the amendment that you did, we would share the $75,000, half and half, as I understand the current agreement.
If the county agreed that there were $75,000 worth of repairs that needed to be made.
Correct. And I guess that comes back to the question then, you know, at some point in a construction project and all that, you have to go to an expert and you have to figure out what that is. And we were told that the bids could be as high as $120,000 by the stonemason. And he said that he would do this work himself for $75,000 and that he would feel like that was fair. And that's how we came to those two numbers being the allowance in the bid. And whatever you guys do now, then I am well, assuming is a bad thing, but it is my belief that the city council will take up whatever they're going to do with the lease amendment at the August 13th. So last night, in order to get before the local government commission by their September 1st meeting, and in order to move forward, the city awarded the contract to Wilkie. They are the low bid, and we value engineered because it was more than what we anticipated, and have been authorized to file an application with the local government commission and have sought financing bids for the project. The public hearing on the financing and the award of the financing bid, and then whatever the city council decides to do with the lease amendment would happen on August 13th for us.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to suggest that we accept the $15,000 responsibility for those two portions of the wall, and that we amend our lease agreement to going forward with the city taking care of the $75,000 for the, I believe that's the North Green Street section that I think Sally just talked about. I think it's reasonable that, you know, going forward, we both share in the cost of wall maintenance there.
And I agree with that. With your assumption, I just can't imagine if the walls rebuilt, even if the lease is for 40 more years, unless somebody would tear the wall, intentionally tear the wall down, we wouldn't have anything probably to pay for. Johnny ain't gonna be here. I can guarantee you in 40 years. I'm not gonna worry that much about it. And I understand what we did in the lease agreement. I understand JR's recommendation as the county attorney to say we got that lease agreement and we put it in front of the city council. But to me, it's superfluous. You know, I think getting out for $15,000 to me is really, really cheap. And the city's took on a lot of responsibility to pay the remainder of that money. So I don't have a problem with amending our motion on this to what Jeff has said, is to obligate ourselves for the $15,000. And I could care less. To me, it just doesn't bother me to see that we share the responsibilities, because I don't think there's going to be any responsibilities for the next 40 years if the wall is built correctly. And those are big ifs. We just have to trust that it's going to be built in a manner that the only other thing that could happen to it would be somebody intentionally tear something down.
Mm-hmm.
That,
Or
that's.
some kind of an accident that.
Yeah, some kind of
happened.
an accident, somebody run over with a car or something. Yeah, that's just a chair's thought. Scott, did you have something you wanted to say? I saw you lean forward.
Well, I'm amenable to that. We've been responsible, co-sponsors on that wall forever. I assume, and of course, the wall will be repaired, but I assume, and maybe this is an ask for JR, we have the wall repaired and there's some type of construction on the project for the city, and the wall part of it gets destroyed. Do we have to come in? Are we liable for that, JR, if we're going to say, have a backhoe in there building the stage, and all of a sudden, there's a problem and they tear out part of the wall accidentally? What kind of liability would we have on that?
Well, that's one thing that the amendment addresses, and it says that we wouldn't have any responsibility for that. That any damage that would be done in the building of the city's entertainment center would not.
So we specifically address it, and that's what I don't have in front of me either, as the other gentleman here. So as long as that's addressed, I'm fine and amenable to what Jeff's talking about. The 15,000, because the wall repairs, when we first started taking a look at that, I thought that sounded really lowball on some of the initial costs. So that's a long wall, it's a big wall. So if the city's willing to take on the majority of the cost, I don't see why we would not be willing participants for the 15,000 and continual going forward on the wall portion.
Mr. Chairman, I sitting here thinking, if anything damages that wall the next 30 or 40 years, it is going to be a Big Mac truck or something damaging it, and insurance should cover that. That should not be a question for either Morgan City or Burke County if it's built correctly. So I fully agree. We need to participate at the 15,000 mark and not worry about the wall. It's going to be there.
Okay. Wayne, you're the last one. Do you want to comment?
No, thank you.
Okay. So I think we've come to a consensus on a new motion on that. And am I thinking correctly that we want to pull the document back that JR sent over, since we're saying now that we probably want to go to 15,000 and leave it like it was? Everybody comfortable with that?
Well, I would recommend keeping the amendment, but making the changes to the funding process that you all have discussed here. And
we would have to vote either way, because anything the board votes to accept, we have to vote either to modify or delete.
Exactly, sir.
But the amendment that will be revoted on, for lack of a better discussion, do I understand, will be the 15 and keeping the shared responsibility?
Yes.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Yes.
And so we would do the same thing on the 13th.
Okay.
Is that everybody's expectation?
Yeah. Yes. Kay, you okay with everything? Did you get it down? Okay.
And
all right.
JR, I'm sorry, will
Go ahead,
JR be sending us, JR, will you be sending us a corrected copy of that? Do you want Louis to do that? Tell me.
I will send you a revised amendment agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Good. All right. I know that's a great project, and you're spending dollars on that courthouse square, for future use. And I think it's the wall does need to be fixed. I want to make sure nobody gets hurt over it, just like we talked about some other issues. All right.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments regarding this matter? Okay. Without objection, Vice Chair Mulray.
Yes.
Commissioner Abley?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
And I will vote yes also. All right. Thank you so much, Sally, for being with us today. We
Thank y'all.
appreciate that. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Maynard Taylor, before you move off of those items for decision, all three of the sheriff's items is not an increase in budget. It is using lapsed salary.
Yes, sir.
JR can give his verdict on it, but I don't see any reason those 3 items can't be moved up into the consent agenda.
Anyone else have any objection to moving that to, JR, give your opinion first.
I think Mr. Taylor's right on that. I think with consent of the group, it can be moved to the consent agenda.
Well, one is using lap salary, the other 2 is using restricted funds that's already there.
Right.
Okay.
I'm fine with it.
You okay, Scott, with that?
Absolutely.
Jeff?
Yeah, JR, since those funds are coming from a restricted account, we don't have any special obligation there, do we?
No, they're simply funds that were with the narcotics task force before it was dissolved. They have to be used for narcotics police work, but that's the only restriction.
Okay, no, I have no problem with that.
Wayne, you got any problem with it? Okay, I heard him through the door. I don't believe he does. Okay. Madam Clerk, if you will move those items to the consent agenda, notify the sheriff that he will not have to be present for those, okay?
I will.
All right. Moving on to items number 7 is our reports. Mr. County Manager, you give us an update on the Eckerd Creek Pump Station rehabilitation.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to pass this over to our clerk who actually got to go out with Miles and take a look, and she was on site and can give a better explanation.
All right, Madam Clerk, make it good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. In your chairman's notes are photos of the interior and exterior of the Eckerd Creek Pump Station rehab project. It's coming along nicely. The building is essentially complete. They've got some fine grading, site cleanup work to do. So I think in a couple weeks, if you wanted to have a ceremonial photograph taken at the new facility, I throw that out there for your consideration. It's a very nice looking facility.
All right, questions or comments from Kay on this visit she made?
Mr. Chairman, only one. It sure will make Nellie more happy when that is completed.
It will indeed.
We want to keep Nellie happy. She actually sent us a happy note today, and we're really happy that we got a happy note from her, I'll tell you. Okay, great report, Kay, and that is a good looking building. And we've talked about Eckerd Creek for a number of years. I'm glad to see this happen.
So how does folks, if you want to do it, how does your schedules look like for a morning in the 3rd or 4th week of August?
Just tell us when to be there. Okay. All right, under other discussion items, as your chair, I want to remind everybody to have all your pets spayed or neutered. We've gone through that many times in hearing some of the money that's being spent. It would be a great thing for us to make sure that pets are spayed and neutered. Reminder to all the citizens of Burke County, please don't litter. We need to make Burke County clean as we can. We'd like for everybody to go to social media and like us on Facebook. The 2020 census is still occurring. Our numbers have gone up, but there's still, I would love to see them go much, much higher. So let's remember to do the 2020 census. Gentlemen, please let me remind you that a very unusual situation that we're having the NCACC annual conference by Zoom. That starts tomorrow at 3:00 p.m. So 3:00 p.m. tomorrow, Wednesday, August the 5th. And then again on August the 6th, Thursday, it starts at 8:30 a.m. There will be a number of classes. There will be a number of business meetings. The business meeting on Thursday will be the election of new officers and new NACO officers. So our voting delegate, Scott, you need to be prepared for that one on Thursday. I don't have, does anybody else have anything that we need to bring in front of the board?
Mr. Chairman, just for clarity, I had that starting next Thursday. Does it actually start tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
That's great.
You got 2 weeks. You got 2 days this week and then 2 days next week.
Oh.
Yes, sir. It's August the 6th and August the 7th. And then next week it will be August the, what is it, Kay? It's Friday and Saturday. It's August the 14th and August the 15th. So we got 2 days this week and then 2 days next week.
We don't have our Zoom connection yet from what I could see.
I spoke with Jason King at the association today. They were supposed to send something out by email around 3 o'clock today. I don't have my email open at the moment, so I don't know if it came in, but they were working on sending out those credentials. If they didn't come at 3, I'm sure they'll be there sometime tonight or first thing, hopefully in the morning. Stay tuned.
We did get, Kay, I'm on my phone. We did get an email. It came in at 3:14 p.m. We are going to be able to join by using a laptop or desktop computer. There is a link in this email that we got to do that, to join the convention itself. Tells you exactly how to do it. If you have any trouble, I don't know what to tell you to do or who to call, but it seems like it's pretty straightforward. If you're on your home computer or a laptop, it says click here to access the conference. That should work. So we'll get that and make sure. I would suggest that you get on a little early, maybe 15 or 20, because there'll be a lot of people trying to get on. So you may want to go even 30 minutes early. And it does have a password, which is 113-NCACC. So you should have that email with you when you check your email this afternoon. All right, anything else? All right, hearing nothing, we will, without objection, we will adjourn. Vice Chair Mulvey?
Yes.
Commissioner Abley? Commissioner Abley? He said yes. I don't know where he's at. Commissioner Britton?
Yep.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes, sir.
And I will vote yes also. Thank you, everyone. See you.
Good night.
Good night.